Welcome back, guys. It's been way too long since my last video. Hit the sub button if you're not supporting the channel already. If you're supporting the channel, I appreciate it. Thank you for the support. Before starting up with NHL division projections, I have 3 teams from the Atlantic making the playoffs, 5 from the Metro, and a split between the Central and Pacific with 4 teams. Proceeding on, since the sun rises in the East and sets in the West, I'll start in the East with the Atlantic division. At the number 8 spot in the Atlantic is the Montreal Canadiens. The forward group is strong with a mix of young guys and older guys, but their defense lacks experience, and their goalie situation blows. Carey Price's career is up in the air, so relying on Jake Allen, I'm not too confident in that. I don't think Allen is a true starter in the NHL. Despite all this, the Habs do have some assets that will likely help restore the organization's reputation. To list them off, Suzuki, Caulfield, Harris, Doc, and Slavakovsky. They'll be a competitive team, but I don't see them accomplishing anything this year. Coming in at number 7 is the Buffalo Sabres. This team is definitely heading into the right direction. They're a couple years out from the postseason. Forward group is very strong, along with their talented D. Their kryptonite this year, or the only weakness really, is at the goalie position with Craig Anderson and Eric Comrie. I don't think they're reliable or good enough to carry the load for the Sabres. It's evident Anderson is on the back nine of his career, and Comrie is an inexperienced goalie with only 28 career NHL games on his resume. I think the goalie position will likely hold them back this year, but other than that, they have a fountain of youth up front and on the blue line. Coming in at number 6 is the Florida Panthers. This will shock a lot of people, but I have them missing the playoffs because there has been way too much change within the team. Overall, the current personnel and lineup has been altered drastically since last season. I think the bad outweighs the good for the Panthers this offseason. They'll significantly feel the absence of Giroux, Marchment, Sherratt, Haig, Huberdeau, and Weegar. They still got some stars like Barkov, Ekblad, Bennett, Reinhart, Bobrovsky, and newly acquired power forward Tkachuk. But from my vantage point, they downgraded and took a couple steps back. Maybe the team thrives under a new voice in Paul Maurice. Who knows, the shakeup could be very beneficial for the culture and reinvigorate the organization. This is another ranking that will receive some backlash and some criticism, but I have the Ottawa Senators ranking 5th in the Atlantic, just missing the playoffs. I hate to do this, and I know the Sens clearly improved this offseason by adding DeBrincat and Giroux, but so did every other team. I have many concerns about their goalies, so I have them missing the playoffs. I think this will be a transition year, then they'll kick it into gear in 2024. At the number 4 spot is the Detroit Red Wings. I absolutely love what Steve Yzerman is doing with this team, and especially what he did this offseason by bringing in David Perron, Andrew Kopp, Billy Husso, Dominic Kubalik, Ben Sherratt, and Ali Mata. This team is definitely a legit playoff contender, but in a crowded East, I think they'll be in a similar situation with the Senators. They'll be in a transition year, and both teams will just miss the playoffs. In all honesty, I wouldn't be surprised if they actually clinched a spot. I know that contradicts what I just said, but their goalie tandem is underestimated, and if you really look into it and dive into it, Husso and Nedeljkovic are more than capable of leading a team to the playoffs. It goes without saying, but Tampa has been a powerhouse for the last couple years, and they will continue their success. This past offseason, they did lose a couple key pieces in Ryan McDonagh, Andre Palat, and Jan Ruda. The Bolts did in fact recover by bringing in some worthy replacements such as Vladimir Nemestikov and 2 sound defensemen in Ian Cole and Philip Myers. Tampa is a lock for the postseason. Number 2 is a team that does receive a lot of criticism in the hockey world and is underestimated, but the Boston Bruins do not get enough credit. First-year head coach Jim Montgomery is going to look to make a playoff push. I think the roster intact is more than capable of another deep playoff run. They'll be a prominent team this year regardless of who's injured or whatever distraction appears. There's obviously question marks for the original 6 organization, but the personnel, like I said earlier, will figure it out. Just like the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Bruins should never be counted out. Maybe this is the year they finally get that second cup and Bergeron and Krejci can retire happily. Obviously, there's only one team remaining, which is the Toronto Maple Leafs. This is the year they finally break through in the postseason. They always dominate the regular season, then gradually decline. With two new goalies in the mix with Matt Murray and Ilya Samsonov, the duo is stable enough to lock down the crease. Obviously, Matt Murray has a ton of playoff experience with 2 Stanley Cups under his belt. I see the Leafs goalie situation being effective. Maybe not having a number one starter, but maybe in a situation they do 1A, 1B, just a healthy competition. And I think this will boost the Maple Leafs into the playoffs and hopefully advance past the second round. Coming in at number 8 in the Metro is the Philadelphia Flyers. I really like the hiring of John Tortorella, but the Flyers will be a bottom-of-the-pack team in his first year as head coach. Sean Couturier will likely miss the entire season with the herniated disc. This is such a significant loss. He is a crucial part of the Flyers' identity. Another tough break is Ryan Ellis, who might never play hockey again because of his hips, but the Flyers are in a tough spot. I could see the Flyers starting hot and gradually slipping down in the standings as the season goes on. Those two players sidelined, the Flyers still have players who can put the pieces together, like Farabee, Hayes, Konechny, Frost, Van Riemsdyk, Atkinson, Lawton, Cates. On the back end, you have Provorov, D'Angelo, Sanheim, Ristolainen. You have players that can play, and it's whether or not they put the pieces to the puzzle together. I'm hoping Carter Hart has a Vezina caliber year and really takes that next step and carries the Flyers to the end of the season. Maybe they miss out on the playoffs this year, but next offseason they reset and really come in strong and discover what type of team they truly are in year 2 under Tortorella. The next team at number 7 is the New Jersey Devils. I have a lot of respect for what the organization has done in recent years. They have a talented and skillful roster, but they're just so young that they need a couple more years to develop and really get that experience. Plus, the East is too crowded and just stacked, but I hope they prove me wrong because they're fun to watch, and also maybe they rank higher with the addition of experienced winger Andre Palat. At number 6, this team is pretty much the same team as last year. The Islanders and Senators are in the same spot, which is being on the bubble to make the playoffs. Last year, if I remember correctly, the Islanders were on the road for a while early on in the year as their new rink, UBS Arena, was being constructed. This puts a ton of stress on the body and was a huge distraction. Despite all this, there'll be a team fighting for the last playoff spot in the Metro. I think they could possibly squeeze into the postseason. Being in the best division in hockey, it will be a tough task. Maybe with Barry Trotz gone, the Islanders find some success under new head coach Lane Lambert. I'm curious what kind of system and structure he'll install. As the whole hockey world knew, Trotz was a defensive-minded coach. At number 5 is a team that has obviously made a huge splash this offseason by adding forward Johnny Gaudreau, but they are primed to go off this year. Columbus has had a strong squad for the past couple years. They had injuries last year, but I think they'll have a really good year this year and potentially somehow slip into the playoffs. But again, it's a tight race in the Metro and in the entire East. It's hard to make the playoffs. The 4th spot is the Washington Capitals. The Capitals are a team that is secured with Ovi and Backstrom, with a supporting cast of Oshie, Kuznetsov, and Mantha, which is just great. The Caps made a very good decision by adding goalie Darcy Kemper as they moved on from Samsonov and Vanacek. A couple other additions are Dylan Strome and Connor Brown. And I think as long as you have Ovi and Backstrom, you'll make the playoffs. At the 3 spot, the Penguins are looking to make it 17 consecutive seasons making the postseason. As long as they have 87 and 71, similar to how the Capitals have Backstrom and Ovi, the Penguins will be contenders. The Pens have a ton of great role players and glue guys that create a superb supporting cast, similar to their rival, like I mentioned earlier, the Capitals. Some critics question the performance of Crosby and Malkin and Letang as they get older, but if you really look at their statistics, they're just getting better as time goes on. At the 2 spot is the Carolina Hurricanes. I've said it several times on my channel. This team is my 2023 Stanley Cup champion. so much depth at the forward position, and their blue line is tremendous, along with their great goalie tandem. At number 1 is the New York Rangers. Did lose a couple solid pieces in the offseason as Strome, Kopp, and Vetrano, and also Rooney, Braun, and Tyler Mott all departed. Regardless of all the subtractions, the Rangers added Vincent Trocheck and look to make another deep playoff run. As the Metro is very crowded, going west, the Central Division is very similar. 7 and 8 in the Central is the Blackhawks and Arizona Coyotes. The Hawks will be better than what people think and imagine they'll be, but Kane and Taves are likely out the door. The Yotes might turn some heads while playing in a small barn sold out every night at ASU, but to protect the long-term success of the organization, their best option is to tank for the number 1 pick. Although I disagree with tanking because it disrespects the game and the values, and the Yotes are desperate for a player to revive their organization and bring them back to relevancy. Will it be through the draft by drafting Connor Bedard, or will it be in free agency by signing the hometown kid, Austin Matthews? I think this team could surprise a lot of people because they have Connor Hellebuck, a Vezina Trophy winner from a couple years ago. I don't understand the captaincy getting stripped from Blake Wheeler. It could easily cause a ripple effect and disrupt the morale in the locker room. Wheeler is a valuable asset and has led some strong Winnipeg teams to the playoffs, only to come up short. I don't agree with the Jets removing the C from his chest, but at this point, you might as well just trade him away. And anytime a team removes the captaincy from a player, it displays a terrible image to the hockey world and just looks foolish from an organizational standpoint. It's not professional, and the LA Kings did it to Dustin Brown several years ago, and I just don't agree with it. Moving on to number 5 is the Nashville Predators. They squeezed into the playoffs last season and got bounced in the first round. I could see the Jets and Preds shuffling and competing for the final playoff spot. At the 4th spot is the Dallas Stars. I think a lot of people forget they have Robertson, Hintz, Pavelski, Benn, Sagan, Marshman, Heiskanen, and Ottinger in the crease. Obviously, they still need to figure out the Robertson situation. I think the Stars are better than the Preds and Jets. Honestly, I wouldn't even be surprised if the Stars made a deep playoff run. That core is good. Adam Marchman is so valuable, and he's another scorer that just like more goals every night and every game. So I think the Stars are a lock to make the playoffs. Despite like everyone saying, oh, they're gonna miss the playoffs, I don't think they'll miss the playoffs. I think they'll get in and they can honestly do some damage. I could see the Wild missing the playoffs because Fleury is getting older and eventually Father Time catches up to everybody. And also, they traded away one of their top playmakers in Kevin Fiala. Fiala had 85 points last season, and his absence will definitely be missed. But a good replacement is forward Matt Boldy, who could easily fill his shoes nicely. At any point next season, if the Wild are forced to play backup goaltender Philip Gustafsson, they're screwed. If I'm a Wilds fan, I don't feel comfortable or trust him. They don't really have a good goalie tandem. Gustafsson is inexperienced and has only played 27 career NHL games. The Blues will remain a dangerous team in the Central and a legitimate cup contender. Although they lost David Perron and traded Ville Husso to the Wings, they remain relevant with a core that is more than capable of reaching the playoffs and potentially making a deep playoff run. At number 1 is the Avalanche. I think the regular season will be a breeze for Colorado. The Avs are a lock for the playoffs, but they didn't lose Kadri, Burakovsky, and starting goaltender Darcy Kemper. However, they replaced Kemper with Georgiev while also adding role players like Evan Rodriguez and Anton Blee. Enough said, moving on to the Pacific. Unlike the Sharks in the ocean, the San Jose Sharks will be at the bottom of the food chain. At number 8 in the Pacific, instead of preying on other teams, they'll be stuck as the bait getting annihilated. At the 7th spot is the Anaheim Ducks. This offseason, they brought in Klingberg, Strome, and Vetrano. Also, they will add rookie Mason McTavish, who will attempt to take home the Calder Trophy. A huge loss to retirement is longtime Ducks captain Ryan Getzlaf. In the coming years, we'll witness if any of the younger players learned and listened to them. I see the Ducks being in the same boat as the Wings, Sabres, and Senators. Maybe a transition year and maybe 1 or 2 years out from making the playoffs. At number 6, I think year 2 will be an improvement for the Kraken, but they're still a couple years out from the Sweet 16. I like the acquisitions of Bjorkstrand, Burakovsky. Also, Tanev comes back from a torn ACL or MCL, whatever sidelined him last year. Also, they, like the Ducks, they'll have a rookie who will compete for the Calder Trophy, and Matty Beniers could do some damage and challenge any team for that final spot in the Pacific. Just like the Senators, Islanders, Ducks, and Kraken, the Canucks are in a similar circumstance by being a borderline playoff team. I don't see them making the playoffs, but they'll definitely win some games and be competitive. Don't be surprised if the Kraken really challenge the Canucks for that final playoff spot in the Pacific. The next team at number 4 is the Vegas Knights. I've changed my mind about this team. The Knights will return to the playoffs after missing it last year. I feel like Jack Eichel is ready to dominate and is prepared to have a monstrous year. I would not be surprised if he hits the century mark for the first time in his career. They are without a true starter in net, but other than that, this team is stacked. I would not be surprised if Phil Kessel puts up 75+ points. Another deep team is the LA Kings. They are young with a mix of veteran players, but they play a fast, heavy, and complete game. I was very impressed last year in the first round with their performance against the Oilers, forcing a Game 7. 2 is Edmonton. There's not much to say besides they have 97 and 29. In all honesty, they have a very solid team. Guys like Barry, Bouchard, Kane, Hyman, Yamamoto, and McLeod. Another good player who's a rookie, if he makes it, is Dylan Holloway. It wouldn't surprise me if he's a legitimate candidate for the Calder Trophy. Probably a dark horse. If I didn't already pick the Hurricanes to win the 2023 Cup, the Oilers would be my second or third option. Another team high on my list to possibly win the Cup is the Calgary Flames, who come in at number 1 in the Pacific. It's apparent they experienced some offseason hardships, but they managed to add Huberdeau, Weegar, and Kadri to the mix. The Flames have one of the better bench bosses in the league with Darryl Sutter. Every team Sutter coaches, they play hard and typically have success. The Flames as a collective whole are deep from the forward position to the crease. Thanks for watching. If you're not subscribed, please do so you can follow along